What's going on, world? It's your boy, Kuya P. This is the NRW, where nerds rule the world. And of course, it's the ShoPowSho. So I am the Adobro, the Babinka boy, the leader of the Hala Hala homies in that Sada gang. Back again. I'm so excited, man. It's been a minute since I do my ShoPowShos. Y'all know. And today is a cat. As you see from the background, you clicked on it. You saw a basketball star. You saw Chris Navalta. I've known this cat for a long time. I've been trying to make this happen because this brother, just like me, is going hard in the paint. He's been doing big things for a long time as a journalist, doing PR for a gaming company, and now he's a child author. He's got this great book about basketball stars, obviously. You see, we're talking Caitlin Clark, we're talking Steph Curry, we're talking a lot about basketball. And you know, as Pinoys, basketball's always been our thing. And I think that's the first question I'm going to throw at the gate. So let me stop talking. You see the background. He's waiting in the background. I'm going to unput myself. He's on the screen now, right now. The amazing Chris Navalta. Chris, I'm shooting off air horns right now. It's going off. It's going crazy. Because, you know, as Pinoys, we love to celebrate our people. And I love air horns. Who doesn't? You know, hip hop. You know, so we gotta have the air horns blasting, man. How are you, brother? What's good?
Kuya P, what's good, man? Really happy to finally be on the show with you. Good catching up with you. I'm juiced. I'm really excited to be on it and just talk about anything and everything. Let's go.
Let's go. I love it, man. Yeah, dude. Super excited, bro. And the question I was getting ready to say that I'm like, hold on, I got to do my other intros. I got to make sure I do my work. Why is it you think? I'm gonna lead off with this that we as Filipinos love the sport of basketball because I played basketball. I think you played basketball. Of all sports, like that's the sport that like has really ingrained itself beyond boxing. Well, I also mentioned boxing has become part of like our cultural zeitgeist, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And also shout out to my publisher, Zeitgeist Publishing, on that
Hey,
too.
good gateway right there.
Exactly. But no, for real though, I think as Filipinos, that was one of the first sports that I gravitated to when I was a kid. I think that playing basketball is probably the easiest sport. Like anybody could play it. All you need is a ball and a hoop, maybe a milk crate or something like that, and you either make a shot, you pass the ball, and the score is constantly changing. Football, I love football too. I think Filipino love, shout out to all the Filipinos here in the Bay Area, love 49ers, bang bang Niner gang. But it's physical, and we're small. We're small people. We will get destroyed if we try to play football, you know. Basketball, you won't get hurt. Baseball is a little bit too slow, and so even though boxing is physical, we're as little people, we're fighting little people too. So I think basketball just made a whole lot of sense because at this point, it doesn't matter like how tall you are, how short you are, and Muggsy Bogues is one of the people I highlighted in my book, 5'3". So basketball is just a natural thing, in my opinion. Like that's why I gravitated toward the game. But I think that's what Filipinos are, why they love it so much too.
I definitely agree. I try to go hard in the paint a bit, but then I think I was too short. I think that's the thing that with a lot of us, although we got some ballers, and you're right. Like Muggsy Bogues, when I was younger, he's like our generation. I think you and I, like when he was dunking, Spud Webb, those cats, man, like that made me feel like okay, I can do it. Even being short. So yeah, mad respect. And everybody check out Basketball Stars again. I'm gonna be pumping this title the entire time as I'm talking to my man Chris. I'm gonna have the links in the description as well. Go show love to Zeitgeist, Penguin Random House. Go cop this book right now. We're trying to sell books, y'all, and my brother Chris Navalta. All right, my guy, let's get into it. I want to kind of do what I traditionally do, and then we'll dive more back and forth with Basketball Stars, if you will. As you know, as Filipinos, we love to pay homage to those that came before. We wouldn't be here if not for them. So I'd like to know, I'm curious, I'm gonna start off with where did basketball start for you? Did you inherit it in a way? Can you tell me if basketball was any in part of the bloodline before you came along, where like your parents or, how was basketball introduced to you, if you will?
Yeah, so I think the bloodline came from the writing part. My dad was a good writer back in the day. His mother, my grandma, was also a really good writer. I have an older sister, Patty Navalta, who has written two books on her side. So I think we come from a decent line of writers in our family. In terms of basketball, like I said, I mentioned this in the book, but like when I was in fourth grade, I actually watched the Celtics. I watched a lot of Celtics games back in the day because that's who was tearing it up. Watching Larry Bird hitting threes, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale. That was for a hot second. That was my team. Wasn't until maybe not too long later that, oh, we have a team here in San Francisco. They were playing in Oakland back then. And so the very first player that I gravitated toward was, I don't, this is for some for the OGs, Sleepy
You and
Floyd.
I, as old heads.
Yeah, exactly. Eric Sleepy Floyd, used to tear it up
Yes.
against the Jazz, against the Lakers in the playoffs. Could never get past the Lakers in the playoffs back in the 80s. So he was the first Warriors player I ever heard of. And then I found out there was another guy on the team whose also name was Chris. So Chris Mullin, ever since then, became my favorite player. Always watched him, even when he went to Indiana. And so, in terms of like how this all came together, I went to college at Sacramento State, studied journalism, wound up working in the sports department for my local paper in Vallejo, California, B-Town in the house, and covered high school games, pro games. And then after I wanted to shift off to PR, like you mentioned earlier, it was still in basketball. So my first gig was actually with the Sacramento Kings in the media relations department during the Chris Webber, Peja Stojakovic years. Warriors weren't doing too great back then, but we don't need to talk about that. And so since then, like I gotten to know a lot of players throughout the years. I wound up being a publicist for a former Warriors player, Donald Foyle. Played in the league for 13 seasons. Was doing publicist work for 20 years, whether it was scheduling his appearances for his books, autograph signings, social media, things like that. And then so when the time came where wanted to do a book that kind of introduced kids to the game of basketball, I wanted to use the knowledge that I picked up in working in the industry and also getting to know some of these players. Muggsy Bogues became a really good friend of mine. I wound up being friends with Jeremy Lin's family. So, like, it gave me that sense of perspective. If I could step out of that fan perspective, that these are still human beings who had the same dream of becoming basketball players. And they all had their own story on how they got there, regardless who they were. You heard the story about Jordan not making the varsity team, so he used that as motivation. Jeremy Lin, I just mentioned, was not drafted, got cut, got signed, got cut. Like that happened like 4 times in one season before Linsanity kicked in with the Knicks. Muggsy being 5'3", the average height of a basketball player is 6'5". Kobe had to move to Italy when he was 6. Like I transferred schools when I was 6, and that was just across town. I was freaked out. Like I did not know how to make friends back then. I have no idea what Kobe went through having to go to a different country, learning a different language. So I the whole thing about putting this book together was to introduce any kid ages 8 to 12 to the sport of basketball, introduce them to some of the players that they already know about, but in a different light, like, what they went through outside the court. And then also maybe introduces them to some players that they may not remember, like a Muggsy Bogues, like a Jeremy Lin. So and then toward the end of each chapter is a 4-step process on how to execute their basketball moves. So if you want to do ball handles like Steph, you want to do a step back like Caitlin Clark, you want to do a fadeaway like MJ, that's all there. So it's not, these aren't the tools that's going to make you the next superstar, but it's supposed to help put some basic fundamentals into your bag to get started.
I love that. I love that. I love it. So it's so inspiring. It's so very interesting. Just all the anecdotes that you just stated, just it makes it a must read, especially for a young basketball fan or even a non-fan, to because of their stories, of overcoming adversity and going for your dreams. I think anybody can relate to that. And I just think it's so cool. But being an old head, like, I've been in and out of basketball, used to be really into it, but then, you go through periods and you kind of come off and then you get back into it again. Um, for you, you've been obviously involved with the sport for so long, and again, working PR, working with various players to, okay, decide that you want to do this, right? And then put this knowledge to task. I'm curious how difficult it was to, you have all these big ideas and all these amazing stories that you have in your back pocket of being involved in the game. How do you break it down and select to go with this story, that story, that story? How difficult was it? Okay, you came up with the idea. How long did it take for you to develop it? Were you getting insight already from the publisher? Were you already working with them? How did you narrow it down to the people that you did select in this?
Yeah, so that's a great question because to your point, like how do you select 10 people that whose stories are can be gravitating for a lot of people? So I did work with the publisher, and obviously you want to know who the goats are, right? You want LeBron in there, you want MJ in there, You want Steph, who's the current GOAT in modern day times. But you also want to put together stories of people that you might not know about. Which is why I put Muggsy Bogues. I think Muggsy, that's the one player that a lot of parents are now telling me that this was the chapter that is their kid's favorite. So I'm glad I include him in there. Jeremy Lin, again, Filipinos, all Asians, they love the sport of basketball. He's somebody that's relatable. There was some back and forth on like, do we include Kobe because of what happened to him at the end? There was talk of Luka Doncic being in there, and I understand the international appeal and how everything that he did. But quite frankly, dude hasn't won yet. When he came over here, now he's with the Lakers. We'll see. We'll see. And that's not to say that he doesn't have a story because they all do. What can you say about Kevin Durant? So it was really tough to put that all, into just a 10-person book. But I think what I was able to do was obviously give them players that they know about and tell them stories that they may not have heard of before. And then also tell stories about like everyday people. Like I do think Muggsy Bogues is that type of person. He played 14 years, wasn't an all-star, but everyone knows who he is. Jeremy Lin wasn't an all-star, but he did win a championship in Toronto in 2019. He's very relatable. So I kind of wanted to put that mishmash of, the superstar caliber players and then, the well-respected role players and what have you, so that it was something that everybody could relate to once they pick it up.
Definitely. I love that because as real fans will appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? That you're not just going for the big names and all that stuff. There's all these hardcore players that we know and love that've grinded, that deserve that love and that appeal. Well, and that recognition, excuse me. So I love that, dude. I just remembered something earlier that you mentioned when we were talking about, because you and I are probably about the same age, come from the same cloth, older heads. I'm surprised that you became more of a Celtics cat than a Lakers cat because it was all about, the 80s Lakers versus Celtics. You're a California West Coast dude, but you are in the Bay Area, and obviously, Warriors are right there, but just in that rivalry that you would choose the Celtics over the West Coast. I'm just kind of shocked by that.
Yeah, no, it was good timing because I know I can tell you exactly when this was. This was in 1986. And so the Celtics were in the finals against the Houston Rockets. And I mean, if Houston was better, I probably would have been a Rockets fan, to be honest with you. So I caught it when the Lakers were in a down year, if you want to call it that, not making it to the finals. So if the Lakers made it that year, and it seemed like they made it every year prior, except for that year, then it might have been different, And in hindsight, I'm kind of glad I didn't become a Laker fan because like there's still some Bay Area people here who are big Laker fans. Like when the Warriors played the Lakers a couple years ago in the West semis, like there were houses divided, even in the Bay Area. I don't know. There were some Warriors fans down south, but like, it wasn't like that when it came to Laker fans up here. So in hindsight, I'm glad that didn't happen because if I did discover the Warriors after the Lakers, I don't think I would have had an easy call on who I wanted to root for because I did like Magic, I did like Kareem, I did like Worthy, and they were dominant, and they did play the Warriors in the final in the playoffs, and that's when Sleepy Floyd went off, but they just couldn't get over the top. So no, in my opinion, it worked out. So yes, I'll take the Celtics over the Lakers.
No worries. I love that because I'm on the East Coast. I loved both teams, but I chose the Lakers being because I'm from the West Coast, but I lived on the East Coast most of my life. So it was kind of just weird and I appreciated both, but was a Laker cat. Anyway, it was a wild and I was notion and I was just curious about that.
Yeah, good call.
So as we were saying, you broke it down, you selected, the 10 players, was it 10, for this from that. So would there possibly in sales, everybody go buy this book? Could we use some ideas maybe for a possible basketball stars too?
Ooh, I'd love that, because like, look, NBA's been around for what, 78 years now, and we had about 4,800 players that have played at least one NBA game. There's definitely 10 more stories that I could talk about. Maybe I can include Luka this time. Maybe I can include Kevin Durant, and then some of the future is coming, with Trey Young, with Jason Tatum, maybe Cooper Flag, maybe we can get some Wizards players in there, So I would love to have a basketball stars too, because there's so many stories out there, and there's so many other different basketball moves that I'd love to teach kids. So yeah, I'm all for that.
I love that. So yeah, and I just want to make that happen. I want my boy to have more work and have more product out there because I know how much of a fan you are of basketball and how much you could bring to the table. That's just going to entertain and educate everybody. And because I love how this construction of this book, you get these stories, you give these move sets in there, which I think is just a really cool add-on in there within this all. Just super dope, man, and I know you'll kill it. I want to bridge to one of the things that I also really appreciated. This young woman right here. A lot of times, NBA kind of just overcomes everything, but in recent years, and I'm sure the WNBA with the strength of the new female talent that are out there, they deserve love. And you feature Caitlin Clark here on the cover. What was that for you to introduce, or well, not introduce women have been killing it in the game for a long time, but to have that inclusion. And I just want to point out that because I'm raising a young daughter right now, a special young lady, and she's getting into the sport and loving the sport. I think that's just going to mean a lot for those young female fans out there. So can you talk about, that WNBA Caitlin Clark inclusion and Aja Wilson? I think it is. You also have her featured as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it was Caitlin Clark, Asia Wilson, and Lisa Leslie. Like it started with Lisa Leslie with some other players too, Dawn Staley, Rebecca Lobo back in the day. No, it was important for me to include WNBA players in this book because basketball is not a man's sport anymore, you know? We talked about how like back in the day, the dream team paved the way. It was a watershed moment for international players, right? And I think that when the U.S. women's basketball team in 1996 won the gold, that was inspiring to a lot of female basketball players as well. So now you're seeing female basketball players all over the world playing the game. The WNBA has been around since 1997. It is just now receiving their due, long overdue, if you ask me. Um, and there are so many great players out there that's just, making this sport a lot more popular than ever. Caitlin Clark being one of them. Asia Wilson, who won multiple championships and MVPs. Angel Reese is up and coming player. Kelsey Plum. The list goes on and on. So I wanted to make sure that this book wasn't just for boys who love basketball, but girls too. This is we can learn a lot from the players from the WNBA. Like this is a fun game, and the W is so much fun to watch because it goes back to fundamental play, a lot of passing, a lot of cutting. And so, like, we don't necessarily need to see the logo threes, although Caitlin Clark's been really good at that. So maybe every now and then that gets us excited. But it goes back to like fundamental play, and like WNBA games are so much fun. You're seeing sellouts over here in the Bay. The Valkyries, who's like just a few months old, is already selling out arenas. So it's at a fever pitch right now, and I just wanted to make sure that they were included too because I think this is an important book for female basketball players too.
Completely agree, and I love that. Again, I want to send kudos from a father for those of us raising young women out here, and all for my female friends that are into the sport of basketball. I just thought that was remarkable, and I appreciate that you included that in there. So yeah, just such a great book, Chris. That I think is going to be must read for a lot of people that are getting into the sport or not even into the sport. Because there's so very relatable stories within this. So bravo, and fingers crossed we get a part two because I think there's a lot of stories in there that you can bring out of your mind that are worthy. Before I transition, because I want to know more about the one and only Chris Navalta, which is what we kind of do here on ShoPowSho. But obviously, I want to give love and light to this book. As you were doing this, and as you know, as a writer, journalist, you've been in the game for a long time, literally in the game. What was a story that, as you were doing this, and you covered 10 different amazing players that you didn't know? Because I'm sure you knew a lot, but when you're doing the research, when you're covering so many different people, and maybe some folks that you didn't think you were going to do, but you wanted to include that. What stories that you discovered that are presented in this book that are brand new to you that you found just very interesting? Although they were very interesting, I don't want to downplay anybody else's story, but one that you didn't know that was very intriguing to put into Basketball Stars.
Yeah, absolutely. There is one particular story that spoke to me because it gave me a sense of perspective on who this player is as a person, and I actually have a newfound respect for him as a person. It's LeBron. So when LeBron was a kid, everybody knows that he grew up with a single mom, didn't really have a stability in his life, didn't have a father figure, wound up moving from different homes like at least 12 times when he was a kid because that's how unstable his life was. And in the process, he missed over 100 days of school. So for all we know, this is somebody who could have taken life in a different direction because of the instability that he had, and it would be understandable of why that would happen. Fortunately, it didn't. A football coach was looking for kids to play, was looking at LeBron and thought he could play football. Um, Found out about his situation, offered him and his mom to stay with him for a little bit of stability, roof under his head. Um, have food on the table and in exchange be able to go to practice after school. And so that was like one of the first times LeBron really had a father figure at the time. And then once given that opportunity, you saw what he did with it. He literally took the ball and ran with it. I think it's his first football game. The first time he carried the ball was an 80-yard touchdown, you know? And we saw that he became a really good high school football player too. And then, of course, he was introduced to basketball, and then that totally, we saw what happened there, obviously. Um, this story is out. LeBron himself doesn't really talk about it a lot. And I can understand why. But I could see now why he opened his I Promise school over in Akron, Ohio. Like he wants to make sure that he gives kids those same opportunities. And that was kind of the message that I picked up from it. Like all you need is an opportunity, like regardless of what situation you're in, like, and if you have support around you, like LeBron just had his mom the whole, during that time when he was a kid, and she wasn't around because she had to work. And so once he had that stability, like he never looked back. And that was something that really spoke to me because it's like, wow, we could have missed out on something really special. Like a generational talent almost didn't happen because of where his life was as a kid. And so I think we take that for granted as basketball fans. Being from the Bay, we like to boo the hell out of him because of what he does to us. But I think for me, it's like a whole newfound respect for him as a person. And so I will continue to boo him when he's in town, but it's because of how good he is, and it's because it's like they say, when you boo him, it's out of respect.
Exactly.
But I will absolutely like admire him from afar just because of what he had to go through, and it's great to see what he's become. And I know he's at the twilight of his career. I for one will not take for granted the remaining years he has, even though he's playing on a team that I didn't like back in the day when I was a kid. I like the Celtics. But I will still admire him from afar.
Definitely. Well said. And it's a healthy appreciation and respect. But opposing as sports fans, we get the ability to boo our rivals. Come on now. And still respect. um,
100%.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. And yeah, this just had to be a lot of fun. I think as a fellow writer, when you're putting a project together, half of the fun is the pre-pro and yeah, and then the writing process and getting to know so many things about something you thought you knew, but it humbles us. We don't know everything as we think we do, and then it's just so fascinating, so interesting, and so educational and entertaining when you get to learn more, and you're like, oh wow, and you develop that newfound appreciation. And then when you meet, say, a said person that may be a part of that subject, it's like, oh man, super daps, like even more, like it's cool. Like, wow, I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? So I love that. Everybody go cop Basketball Stars. I'm gonna have the link in the description below. Go cop it on Amazon from Penguin Random House. Zeitgeist, show them love. We need Chris Navalta dropping Basketball Stars too. So I want to make sure we sell out all the books so my man can continue to deliver us stories. And From there, I want to transition, my brother. Again, we'll again show love, but I need to know the man behind Chris Navalta. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking at my time, so I think I got a good enough amount of time, if you don't mind, to dig into you, bro, because we celebrate our Pinoys up in here on ShoPowSho. I think we have a lot of stories to tell of ourselves. So you're from the Bay Area, and you already kind of gave us a little bit of college and stuff, and I'm gonna get into that. So but I want to break it down into little sections, man. So between like 0 and 5, do you know? And I'm sure you probably get this from your parents because you don't know how you came here or what's going on. How did Chris Navalta step on this earth? What would your parents tell me or family tell me about a young Chris Navalta? What he was into from 0 to 5? What can you share about that?
0 to 5. So yeah, I was born in the Bay Area. My parents moved here 1968. Um, and I would say that when I was a kid, I was probably, I think they would call me a troublemaker. I was always playing in the dirt. I was probably eating dirt too. like doing some foolish things around the house, making a mess, playing with my GI Joes, Transformers, my WWF action figures. I think I even dabbled with playing with fire, set the rug on fire at one point. Like who hasn't done that though, right? Um, yeah, I feel like my parents would have told you that being the younger of the two siblings, like I was the favorite one. And that's something that my sister even talks about in her book. Like my grandparents, all four of them lived in our house. So my mom's parents lived in our house and my dad's parents, they all lived there at one point, all to take care of me, you know?
Wow.
And so there was kind of there was that culture clash too because my grandparents would try to instill that Filipino culture and then my sister and I were born here and trying to understand what that all meant, you know. And sometimes they would pack sinigang for lunch and sometimes we would open it up and it's like what's that sour smell like the kids are saying, you know. So it was one of those things where we definitely didn't understand why we couldn't just have a regular lunch at school, you know. But I don't think we really appreciated that until we got older. And of course, like being taken care of by four grandparents, I felt like I was spoiled. So I probably, you know, made their lives a living hell at times, just pouting all the time. So yeah, I think early on, like I was always into my toys. I always wanted to play outside. And was just like watching cartoons all the time too. So it was a happy childhood. I'm glad that they were all there during that time.
Love that. And very stereotypical Filipino. So with that being said, so like that's where I want to transition from 5 to 10. So you're here. You grew up, you were born here, but it's America. It's not the Philippines. So what was it like, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit already with like you have that synagogue and it's different from the other stuff people were bringing to school, right? For lunch or whatever. So discovering that I'm Filipino for the first time. So like 5 to 10, this mishmash of cultures, you might be hearing Tagalog at home, but like English, at school. Was that difficult for you? And were you proud or did you kind of rebel in different ways? Uh, can you talk to me about those realizations? And then uh, were you proudful at first or were you resentful of those facts?
Yeah, I don't think I was resentful, but I did wonder why I was Filipino, you know? Like when I did go to school and I saw these other kids that didn't look like me, white, black, some were, Mexican, they were brown, but they weren't Filipino. So I thought they were different too. So I did wonder like, well, why was I, I guess when I was a kid, you think about these weird random things like why was I chosen to be Filipino is kind of the thing. And then I don't think it really had that kind of pride until I got a little bit older, say maybe 12 years old, you know. Fortunately, I didn't really deal with any racism when I was a kid. Like I didn't feel like I was treated differently just because in Vallejo, like we were very diverse and there were other Filipino kids too later on that I naturally made friends with. So I felt like I was either fortunate or unfortunate because maybe I should have dealt with that so that I can have a better perspective of what the real world is like, you know? And so um it wasn't until like later on that I would watch documentaries about Marcos, Aquino. And then going to the Philippines for the first time too when I was 10 years old. That was a totally different perspective for me because my mom is over from the Sarangani province, Pacquiao baby, over in Mindanao. So like totally rural area, like no running water in the house. And so it definitely opened my eyes and realized like, oh, this like it's not like this everywhere where I was living in America. Like you go to the Philippines and it's like really, really different. Even in Manila, like, very major metropolitan area, but there's still a lot of panhandlers and homeless people, and it's super hot over there. So yeah, I don't feel like I really got a sense of that Filipino pride until maybe I got a little bit older and was exposed to more things that were Filipino, including going to the Philippines too.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm assuming the trip humbled you and you developed a newfound appreciation for that you're not living in that in a lot of ways, right? And you have uh uh running water. You have different things
Yeah.
that we, you know what I'm saying? It just makes you really appreciate what you have. And nah, that's awesome. So did you learn Tagalog?
I didn't know. So I'm Ilocano, but I didn't learn Ilocano either. Like I
Yeah.
start to I start to understand it more, and but it's not something that I was able to learn to speak just yet. So hopefully someday, because I would like to know, what my titas and titos are saying about me.
Right? We just know our names when they like, ay nako, putangin mo, Patrick Michael Strange. Ay nako, you
Yeah,
just know your name, right? It's just your
exactly,
name.
exactly.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. I love it. Same, bro. But I don't think I'll ever learn because it's like there's so many things going on. But I want to. I want to. All right. So let's go from 10 to going into the high school age into graduating from high school. So
Hmm.
so we're older now. We can actually put together sentences. We're figuring out ourselves. We're falling in love with wrestling, falling in love with basketball. Can you tell me how these things entered into your life? Because we know that's so instrumental to who you are now. And what were the first things you wanted to do at that time growing up? What did you aspire to be? Can you take me into like schooling years and like the first things you got into and maybe wanted to do when you grew up?
Yeah. So when I was 12, like my first time dabbling in writing was writing for the elementary school paper. And so I remember writing this article about George H.W. Bush when he just won the election, and I thought that I was going to go into politics. I was really enamored with politics at the time. I don't know why. I mean, it's a lot better to follow then than it is now. Um, and then my first sport, if you want to call it that, like I was actually into Taekwondo. So my dad and I took Taekwondo for a couple years. And then after that, when I was 13, the first sport among the four major sports that I really got into was baseball. So I played in the Babe Ruth League when I was 13. I was a pitcher, played third base. I thought I was going to be a good pitcher, but my fastball can never get past 65. Um, and so I was doing that for a couple years, and then after that, I played wide receiver in high school. So played wide receiver in high school, tore my knee cartilage, couldn't really run anymore. Then I ran track to as a distance runner to help rehabilitate, but I did love running. So, I was one of those kids that wanted to be an athlete, wanted to stay in shape, a jock, I guess you can call it that. Dated a cheerleader, so like the quintessential all-American kid, was student body vice president. And was just very involved in all of our high school activities. And so when I decided to go to school at Sacramento State, I actually started with business administration. I didn't really get the journalism bug just yet. Toward the end, like of my high school, my senior year, like I did get a job for the Vallejo paper, kind of as a freelance writer. Because my sister was working there at the time, and I just thought, okay, well, I could do stuff on Sundays, make 25 bucks a day. That's basically what I did. Like, and it was covering community articles that only parents would want to read, like bocce ball tournaments, club basketball, taekwondo tournaments. So it was a really, really small thing that I did just for $25 a day. And that was a lot of money back then, you know? And I had to pay for grad night. So it was one of those things where like the writing part didn't come until like that in my senior year onto college. And then when I started taking some English classes and started writing short stories and essays, like there was a professor that told me like you're really good at this, like, and maybe you can do some more creative writing. And that's where I was like, you know what, I do want to write. I do want to write some more, you know. And so when I was in college, I wanted to set this goal to become an author when I was 20 years old, sell New York Times bestsellers until I was 30 and then retire, and then that's it. That was the dream. That was what I wanted to do. That obviously didn't happen. I'm here now in 2025 talking about my first book, And so it was but I was still writing on the newspaper side. I started covering more events that mattered, like high school sports. Then it became junior college, and then ultimately professional games. So I started covering more Warriors games, more Kings games, more 49er games. And so I saw where my career was now going when I was in college. Like, okay, it looks like I'm going to be a sports writer, and it looks like I'm going to be doing this for a while, and I was. Like up until like maybe 2000, this was in 1995 when I started at Sac State. I was doing the newspaper thing from 95 probably till like '04, you know?
Wow.
And then it wasn't until then, like, you know what? I kind of see where the landscape is going in media now. There's people that's doing more online stuff, and they're downsizing newspapers. And that's how I was trained. I was, I still took the typewriter classes. I still took the journalism courses where you're laying out pages and putting into the printing press. And I still like to have my articles cut out and putting them in scrapbooks, and it's not the same when you just print them out of your computer, like maybe it's normal now, but like back then, like that was like the accomplishment. Like I get to put something in my scrapbook and look back at it. And so in I want to say like more like 03, 04 was where I was like kind of like overlapping between careers now from sports journalism to sports PR. So
Mm.
I would say like in 03 was when I took the gig working for the Sacramento Kings in their media relations department. And like I thought PR was so simple back then, just because like the press was coming to us wanting to interview Weber, wanting to interview Peja, wanting to interview Bibby. I didn't have to do a damn thing, you know? So I thought I thought, oh, this is the easiest job ever. And it's in sports. And like I made a lot of really good friends and it was just a good time and we were winning games. And then it wasn't until like maybe a few years later that when I decided, you know what? I'm doing a lot of sports for a number of years, and I kind of want to venture out to different industries. So I started working at a PR agency, and that's really when I thought, oh, this actually is not easy at all. Like I need to be creative, and I need to pitch stories to press and give them a reason to write about it, and make sure that it's interesting to them. And so it wasn't until during that time that I worked at that agency. I was exposed to a lot of different industries like tech, education, nonprofit, um, what is that? Interior decorating. Like I could tell you some colors that go with furniture, you know? So and so those were important years because um I understood how difficult it can be to work in PR. It takes a very special personality to do it. It takes a creative mind to do it. And it really it becomes very gratifying to see when I'm pitching a story idea to a reporter, they're interested, they want to interview the spokesperson I'm representing, and then it becomes a nice piece of coverage in the newspaper or on TV. And that's when the work became a lot more gratifying for me, you know. All the while I never stopped writing, whether it was press releases, blogs. Sometimes I was writing byline articles, not my name on it. Maybe I'm representing a tech company and their executive's name is on it. But I always kept the writing sharp, and I always had stories in the back of my mind on some of the things that I wanted to tell. And so I think that being able to be outside of sports and work in different industries and understanding how, everyday, day-to-day thinking is in all those other spaces really helped me become well-rounded. And
Definitely.
then ultimately went back to, doing sports. And then also like finding my real love, which was now, what I do today, which is working in video games. And then putting those two together too. Like I'm sure we'll talk about that later on, but linking athletes with the games that they love to play, So it kind of it all comes full circle for me when it comes to all the passions and the interests that I have, and now they all seem to be like blending in together.
I love that. I love that for you, dude. And I completely agree how your journey has made you so well rounded because you have to adjust in it and go back and forth with certain things, and it's getting more tools into your toolkit. That I think that a lot of writers don't understand, or they think they can just start off. No, you got to kind of dabble in and kind of mix things up and see how different processes and different genres and companies flow and industries flow to make things work and uh, for their needs and all that. So I want to go off into gaming too, and we're getting there because there's some cool stuff that has also recently happened for you that I definitely want to talk about because I'm so jealous. Can't lie. When I look at your Instagram, I'm like, this man right here, and and you know me, I think I got it made, and I'm pretty cool. But bro, you put me to shame a little bit, and I'm jealous. Anyway, what I want to inject in here from what you've just said is as writers, uh, also a lot of us are introverts. And when I'm trying to school other people, and I'm sure you interface with a lot of other up and coming writers, and when you're talking to such large celebrities of various statures, right? You know, uh, how was that for you when you were first coming into the game, and you and uh, finding yourself in the industry, being a journalist, covering things. If you can even take me back to that very first time, were you scared? How did you overcome it? And what has been in your toolkit to overcome, imposter syndrome or man, I really love this guy. I don't know if I can really talk to him because I idolize this guy so much. What have you done, and what would you give as some of your pro tips as a writer, doing interviews
Mhm.
that you tell a young cat that's coming up in the game?
Yeah. Taking a step back from what you were saying about starting out, like, yeah, I remember interviewing my first NBA player and being a fan, and trying to remember that I'm not supposed to be a fan, I brought my camera, my disposable camera to the locker room and taking pictures when that was an absolute no-no. I don't know how I didn't get kicked out of the locker room during that time. Um, but the first athlete I ever interviewed, and maybe you might remember who this is, Chris Gatling played center for the Warriors, played for the Dallas Mavericks, played for the Cavs, played for the Nets, made the All-Star game once. And I remember thinking, wow, that's Chris Gatling. Like I've seen him on TV. He's really good. And I remember interviewing him, and I think I was still trying to find my way in terms of like how to ask questions because I don't remember what I asked him. I think I remember saying something to the effect of, yeah, you've been doing really well this season, and you're probably hoping that you could stay healthy during the playoffs later on. And so I didn't really frame it as a question. And then
Mhm.
he just came back at me like saying, I don't know what you want me to say about that, you know? And
Yeah.
I remember that kind of jolted me like, oh shoot, like I'm stuck. I don't know what the question is anyway. And so I remember when I was young, I was thinking I was 18 years old when this happened. And I remember thinking to myself, man, Chris Gatling's a jerk. But like that's not necessarily true. Like I just didn't know how to ask questions yet. And I think a lot of that had to do because I haven't been in that situation before. And I was interviewing somebody who played for a team that I love. And so that was like one of those welcome to journalism moments where okay, I really need to think about what I want to ask the person, like in preparation, and also how to ask things on the fly as follow-ups. So after that, like it got a little bit better. Like I was still writing the questions down and I was kind of reading them as I was doing. It wasn't really a conversation. It was more of a Q&A, you know?
Mm.
And so I remember doing that with Tim Duncan. Like I remember exactly what I wanted to ask him. I went down the list. I don't think I was even listening to his answers. I think I just wanted to make sure I get my questions across and then making sure that I just got out of there, you know? And then so eventually, like once I got more comfortable and being around the players, and it was really when I was working for the Kings because, Anthony Peeler was a really cool person that I got to know during that time. And he made me feel like, these are just guys, just like everybody else. I don't need to hold them to a certain regard. Yes, they make millions of dollars and score a lot of points, but they're still people too. And then once I started thinking, you know what, I can absolutely talk to them like they're people, that's when things started to click for me, you know? Also like having done this for Donald Hoyle for 20 years and like we became lifelong friends. I got married at his house, you know? So now I'm discovering the human element of it, which is goes back to why I wanted to put this book together. So I think that when the to answer your question about like what are the pieces of advice, like just remember that they're people too, you know. Try not to fanboy, fangirl that person, because that's what they get all the time. You're there to do a job, to ask questions. They're expecting you to ask questions, so they're ready to provide answers. And then once you get over that, like it can become like a pretty simple conversation, like pay attention to what you're asking too. Like don't write, yes, maybe you can write down a list of things to ask, but listen to their answers so that you can have follow-up questions. And then maybe it becomes more of a natural conversation instead of just a Q&A. So it took me years for me to figure that out. And it could take people longer, it could take people not as long. But it's one of those things where you just continue working on your craft. It's something that, believe it or not, I'm still not used to because people are again, there's people with different stories and different backgrounds. You might catch them on a bad day and they might just be in a bad mood.
Oh
How
yeah.
do you adjust to that? So never stop learning and never stop refining your craft because every situation is going to be different. And that's what's so great about doing the things that you and I both do. No 2 days are the same. It's always different. You meet exciting people, you have fun conversations with them, you get a different perspective based on the lives that they had, and then you have a more appreciation for the thing for what you do too. Because it's like, this is cool. Like, what are we doing? We're talking to interesting people. We have a lot of followers. People are interested in our content. It's a good thing. And so that's the type of advice I would give to people who's just starting out.
Definitely agree. Definitely agree. Just continue to do it. If you love it, just it'll work itself out. It's like getting your reps in. Like we work out. You know what I'm saying? You got to build your
Hmm.
muscles, right? So just build with your writing and just keep doing it. And yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. Because no matter how many times you tell somebody, they're like, nah, but they'll listen to somebody else. It's like, okay, so listen, Chris, right now. Chris has seen it. If you don't want to listen to me, Chris knows we've been doing it. It takes time and it takes practice. So just like basketball, LeBron, Steph, everybody, Caitlin Clark, they had to continue to work at their craft in order to be who they are now, which is detailed in Basketball Stars. Y'all go pick it up. Again, links in the description below. Support my brother because I need Basketball Stars too, y'all. Let's do it. All right, Chris. So we were talking about sports. You started doing sports PR, but now you as you were saying, you kind of came into this point where you are somewhat now mixing the gaming industry with what you're doing and introducing athletes to gaming. Uh, can we talk before we get there? Because we didn't talk about gaming earlier. We talked about playing sports, and you're a wide receiver. You played baseball. What were you playing? Were you an early Nintendo guy? Were you a Sega guy? Tell me where the gaming love, and then fast forward that into now.
Man, I was an Atari guy. How about that?
Atari, my
I was,
man, really old school. Let's
yeah,
go.
I got the 2600. Was Kaboom was very anxiety inducing if you remember Kaboom. Like that used to stress me out catching those bombs.
Yeah,
Same thing with Pitfall. Like you see the pits appear, disappear,
Pitfall
and
was
you
my shit.
got to make sure that you're right on the edge. Otherwise, you fall down. Jumping over those crocodiles, man. The Atari was it back then. I was that.
Frogger too. Yeah,
Frogger
Frogger.
too. Yep, absolutely
Frogger.
Frogger. I was on that Nintendo, Mike Tyson's Punch Out, Tecmo Bowl. And then I jumped over to Sega Genesis after that. And then Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. That was a fun game. And then like ever since then, it's been always PlayStation. Like people in our industry talk about console wars, like well, PlayStation versus Xbox. Like, you like what you like, and I've been playing PlayStation since 1995. And, much respect to those who love their Xbox. I have no problem with that, but I'm more of a PlayStation person
Okay, PS5 all the way right now.
all
All
day.
right. So, let's talk about. So now going into the gaming, you're mixing. You're doing sports PR. How did and what are you? I think you're EA or no? Or am I
Ubisoft.
Ubisoft? Okay.
Yes.
So how did this and going? Can we talk about that transition to now and this amazing stuff you did recently? Again, we're wrestling fans as well. We and I don't know if we brought that in. I'm curious your wrestling start, but you were at AEW All In. You were with the one and only. Oh my God, Will Ospreay. You were a ninja, bro. What was that like? Talk to me. Working
Yeah.
with Ubisoft and building this relationships with AEW, with WWE, all these amazing wrestling stars that again making me jealous as f over here.
Yeah, so working at Ubisoft was part of my journey in dabbling with different industries. So I mentioned being in tech and education and nonprofit, and there was also gaming that was involved there too. So I had done I'd done a project with Epic Games, the makers of Fortnite, but back then it was for a cybersecurity company, and we were pitching stories about how hackers could get into Fortnite, and that wasn't really the stories that I wanted to tell, but scaring people with cybersecurity stories. That's not what anybody wants to hear. But I did want to see what this gaming thing was all about. So I saw an opening at Ubisoft. I took it. Told them that I had a sports background, and if there was possible, like we usually have activations whenever we're launching a game. Do I have some contacts that I might be able to reach out to and see if they're interested? And I did. I had some contacts with the Warriors. I had some contacts with the 49ers. I made friends with somebody who actually managed a wrestler. So Rusev with WWE, he's a big Ubisoft video game player, and so this same manager also manages Will Ospreay. So shout out to Farbod as Nashari. He manages both Rusev and Will Ospreay. We became really good friends. Also reminds me of me because he also writes for Sports Illustrated and he covers the LA Clippers. So reminds me a lot of me where he's a combination of PR and journalism. But anyhow, Farbod told me that Will was a big Assassin's Creed fan, and that's one of our big franchises that we make. And so you know this, he's the aerial assassin. Like his whole gimmick is based around Assassin's Creed. So for years, he was doing ring entrances that was inspired by the game, but was not really affiliated with us. Like he didn't work with us. This is something that he just wanted to do. Like his finishing move is the hidden blade with the elbow. He does a triple corkscrew off the top rope, what that's called the leap of faith. Those are all Assassin's Creed references,
He's a
you know?
fanboy. He's a
Yeah,
fanboy.
absolutely. So so when I linked up with Farbod and he said, why aren't we working with Will Ospreay? Like he's already doing it, like let's give him that rub and make this even better so that it can be like, this big production. And so at AEW All In London 2024, that was the first time we worked with Will. And so he had an Assassin's Creed Shadows entrance that had some B-boys doing some head spins, a video package that had one of the main characters do some voiceover. So it became this really big thing that got millions of views. Um, Wrestling fans, I believe a lot of them are gamers, and so that collaboration made a whole lot of sense. And then Assassin's Creed Shadows came out earlier this year, back in March. We just reached 5 million players. And for AEW All In this year, Will wanted to do it again. I'm like, oh, you want to do another Assassin's Creed entrance? All right. Instead of B-boys, like we're gonna not, this was all his idea. He wanted taiko drums. He wanted ninjas to do different moves. He wanted another VO package, and then he would pop up like Rey Mysterio. That was all Will's vision, which I appreciate because sometimes you don't hear from the talent themselves on what they want to do. Sometimes they're just approached with the idea and then they say, yeah, sure, go with it, you know? And so my part in all this was, hey, yo, can I be one of the 12 ninjas? Like, I just want to stand around. Like, I just want to stand around there. And so, Farbod, Will's manager, was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll do it too. How about that? So Farbod was also one of the ninjas. And so we get there at AEW All In, and I'm told we're actually doing stuff. I'm like, yo, like, that's not what we agreed. I just want to stand there. I
I'm
just
just a
like,
PR guy.
yeah, like I can't, you can't give me a sword. I can't do any flips. I can't do any kicks. I need to stretch, you know? Like I'm clearly the oldest one among that group, but what they wound up doing was we had about six stunt people to perform, while six other extras. That's me, along with some indie wrestlers that actually trains under Dustin Rhodes were there. So
Oh,
they were
nice.
also dressed as ninjas. So if you look back, you see an Assassin's Creed crest, and it's a different one because it's an ode to a different Assassin's Creed game in the franchise. So we wind up, going through what we need to go through the day of the event. So I'm like freaking out. I'm like backstage. I'm trying not to mark out with all these wrestlers that I grew up watching and still trying to focus on what I need to accomplish, So I'm trying to do my whoo, 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 you know, and I was like, that's all I need to do. Do not mess this up in front of 25,000 people. I think the live gate was like 175,000 buys on
Wow.
pay-per-view. Like, do not screw this up. You know what I mean? Like, so, and there were times when I was messing it up in rehearsal. I'm like, oh shit, I'm not gonna get through this. So, the time comes, I'm on stage. I don't even see faces. I see cameras. I see phones, like this is it now. Like it's a small role, but like people will talk about it, especially when it comes to the internet wrestling community. They will talk about it. So if I mess up, then the whole thing just is now focused on me messing up. Thankfully, that didn't happen. And so we do our routine. We line up in what they call a hall. It leads up to Osprey coming out like Rey Mysterio, and then we do our sign, and then there's like 10, literally 10 feet away is the pyro. And I'm like, I'm trying to no sell that. I'm like, not, do not flinch, do not flinch. It was loud. It was
Yeah.
so loud. So, like, it was realizing that I was able to pull that really small roll off. Like, I could see why wrestlers do this because of the rush, because of the roar of the crowd. Like, after I pull it through, then I can hear the crowd. Then I can hear the pop, you know? And the pyro just made it a lot bigger. And then it wound up being a 5-star match with Swerve Strickland against
Oh
the Young
yeah,
Bucks, you know?
big.
So everything just kind of came together. The collaboration with Assassin's Creed Shadows all worked out. Will was really happy about it. He won the match. So I it was a huge thrill just to be a small part of it, you know, and getting to know those wrestlers at AEW, they couldn't have been nicer, you know. And I come to find out that a lot of them backstage are gamers too. So I'm definitely going to be staying in touch with them.
I love that. I love that for you, both from a business career standpoint with what you do. That you all these wrestlers are gamers, and you'll be able to work with them and all that because you're both a wrestling fan and you're a gamer. All of that. So that's just beautiful. But just that has to be now a core memory for you. That's absolutely beautiful. And I gotta ask because we're both married, right? If I were to do that, my wife was like, "Are you really serious? You think you're gonna do that with all them young bucks?" What did your wife say when you told her that you're gonna be a part of this?
So it's funny because Assassin's Creed Shadows is set in feudal Japan. I'm dressed as a ninja. My wife's Japanese.
Oh,
So
that's
so
hilarious.
yeah. So she was more or less like, just don't get hurt. You know,
Right.
don't make a fool out of yourself. Don't overthink it, and also don't overdo anything, you know? Just don't, yeah, ultimately just don't get hurt, you know? And as you know, I'm texting her in real time and like, okay, I think our match is next, you know. So hopefully she's being able to see it in real time back at home while I'm in Arlington doing this. And so once she realized, okay, I didn't mess up and I didn't get hurt. So she was happy for me. She shared it with a bunch of her friends who were wrestling fans too. She herself is not a wrestling fan. She doesn't get it a lot of people do, and I understand that. But to see that the joy that I got out of it and how much fun I had, and more importantly, not getting hurt, she was able to share that with her friends too. So yeah, she's been great in this whole thing. Like doing this at AEW and then spending the last couple of weeks just really talking about basketball stars. Like she's been such a great support, and like I can't do this without her. You know, you're only as good as your support system, and she's been there for me since day one. So I'm super appreciative of her being there for me.
Completely agree. Shout out to your lovely wife. We are nothing without our wives, without our support system, our community, our family and friends behind us as we chase our passions, as we do our passions. Nothing but love to y'all. Sending love to you guys. The amazing Chris Navalta. Um, so working with AEW, working with these gamers and these athletes and bridging these worlds, these passions, these things that you love, you got to be living your best life, Chris. What are some of these things you're hoping to do in the future? I want a basketball stars too. I want us to collab. What are some of the things you've got that you are still ever dreaming as a fan of this industry, a fan of what you do, that you want that we can talk on as well?
Yeah, like I still love working with athletes when it comes to games. Like, I've been working with athletes since, like in college, like when I was either covering them for the paper or doing PR for them for a team. The athletes that I talk to these days, I don't even talk about their sport. You know, I think the gratifying thing about this working in gaming is that we create environments where they can be kids again and they can be playing games and be themselves and not worried about like fans talking to them. Like I feel like we give them a safe place, and I feel like that's how we should always be working with athletes, you know? And so I think just introducing it to our games and giving them opportunities to check it out before it's released is very gratifying just because, they don't really have a whole lot of time where they can be themselves, just because of who they are as athletes. So my hope is to continue working with them because we love working with athletes, celebrities, wrestlers who are genuinely into our games, not just people who are trying to shill and just want to get paid to say, go buy this game. You could totally see right through those
Totally.
types of activations. So that's something that I still want to continue doing on the work side. I obviously still want to continue writing. Maybe there's a basketball stars too, and I don't mind dabbling into other sports too. So I will say that you will definitely not hear the end of Chris Navalta. It's not going to stop with basketball stars. Don't know if it's going to be a basketball stars too, but there's still a lot of creative thinking in this little nugget here. So, hopefully we'll see another book coming in the near future.
Oh, I love it. And when you do, man, please holla at me. We can do it offline. We can talk about it before we really put it on blast. But I want to put it on blast for you to show love and show support, man. And I just love that for you, man. You have one of the best jobs. I think you have one of the coolest jobs. I'm sure you know it. It has to just be awesome to go to work and do what you do. And bro, I'm proud and happy for you. That you just, you living your best life right now, man. And props to you, sir. Well deserved. Before we close it out, man, I always kind of end off with this question, and I also want to, again, like I was saying, as those other ideas come and you come out and do things and you want to put it on blast, please come back. You have an open invitation. You are Kuya, you are family. It's always love here on ShoPowSho, sir. And finally we've made it. We've made it happen today, man, and I'm just thrilled. But what I like to leave out with is, we've talked a lot of nerdy things, but I'm sure there's other nerdy things. There's a lot of things that we are into, but I want to try to maybe reveal one if we can. That maybe people that are friends and family, when they see this interview, that maybe they don't know. And it doesn't have to be the traditional, quote unquote, stereotypical nerd stuff. I've had people that are into law, that are into gardening. What is something that you're just really into that you've maybe even discovered recently that just captivated your interest and that you started deep diving and learning so many things about it, and are like maybe heading into that as just maybe as a side passion, or just that you just want to know more about, if
Yeah.
anything. So what is
Yeah.
something nerdy Navalta is into at the moment? Because I
It's a
also like
little,
this because it then makes me get interested and I start diving into new shit, you know?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I could tell you something that I got into when COVID hit, So back in the day, I collected baseball cards, football cards, basketball cards. You might have too. And so when we were just sitting at home not doing anything, like there's only so much you can do, I went back and just saw some of my old cards. And then I saw an article that there are some former players out there who is accepting cards in the mail and just signing them and sending them back. So I was like looking at who's actually doing this. Like I want to get in on this. I've got nothing to do. I can't go outside. So I wind up like sending like I've sent hundreds of cards out during that time. Most of them I didn't get back, but there was quite a few that I did get back. I got a signed card back from Peyton Manning. I got a signed card back from Vince Carter. I got a signed card back from Dirk Nowitzki. Like these was like, wow, this is a thing. How come more people don't know about this?
Yeah.
You know? And so what that turned into, and it's something that I continue to do to this day, is collecting autographed sports memorabilia. So now it's beyond cards, it's beyond um other things, like it's jerseys, it's footballs, basketballs. I have a signed Bo Jackson bat. I have some signed Clay Thompson shoes. So I actually have an Instagram page that has all these things. It's called Chris Novelties, and it's like I try to highlight one novel signed item per day. As a matter of fact, one second here, because I want to show this to you. I have it in my hand here because of recent events. Oh, that's not the good one. Hold on, hold on, hold on. All right. So I wanted to give love, but then this is a signed Hulk Hogan 1987 Topps card that I have. And
Wow.
so after hearing his passing yesterday, I just wanted to look back and just see all the cool stuff that I had from Hulk Hogan. And so he was somebody that he was the reason why I watched wrestling back in the day. And
Yeah.
so I know that there's a lot to talk about when it comes to him. I'll choose to say that he was the one that got me a fan and made me
Yeah.
into a fan, and so I appreciate that. And so, my thoughts are with Hogan's family during that difficult time. But yeah, that's the one thing that I started doing during COVID was it went from sending things out in the mail, getting them back signed, to all of a sudden having a whole bunch of autographed memorabilia that I don't know what to do with.
Dude, I love that. And what's wild is you and I are so much the same person when pandemic started. And I know this is all about Chris, y'all. I know this is about Chris, but Chris and I are vibing right now.
Yeah.
For me, I jumped back into cards. I started pulling my old football, basketball cards out. But what is crazy that I got into, because I started, I've been in and out of wrestling too, and I think a lot of us as
Mhm.
wrestling fans have been in and out because there's been some down periods and there's been some great periods. I started getting more into wrestling cards at the start of
Okay.
pandemic. And
Yeah.
then, like you, just, I think what autograph that I pulled. I want to say it might have been a Rusev but I think maybe when he was Miro, because I started
Uh-huh.
collecting AEW cards. And actually, I think that's what it was. At the start of pandemic, AEW started doing cards now.
Right,
You
right.
know,
Upper Deck.
because they had just like started out, and I'm like, oh man, let me get on the starting floor, with AEW. And yeah, I think I got a Miro card, an autograph, and then started getting on eBay, started buying stuff up and buying boxes, and just yeah, got really into that. But yeah, anyway, I've got like a whole autograph shrine of the 49ers that I should probably send you some pics, man. You'd probably appreciate because we're
Oh,
bang
I'd
bang
love to
Niner
see it, dude.
gang
Hell
all day,
yeah.
every day. But now I gotta follow Chris's corner. Is your Chris's collectibles? Is your
Chris
IG?
Chris Novelties.
Chris Novelties. I'm gonna have to ping you
Yeah.
after this. I want to
Yeah, yeah.
follow, and
All
maybe
right.
we need to talk because I got a lot of. I think you and I are very cut from the same cloth and into the same stuff. So we might have to, hey man, I got this. You want to trade or whatever? I
Yep, yep.
love it. Yo, Chris, this has been a long time coming. A pleasure to chat with you. Nothing but love to you, man, and congrats on this book. It's well done. I love the concepts. I love what the message is. Just everything about it. I think is just going to be amazing for my friends and family that are basketball fans. I think for everyone, and I hope we get it basketball stars too. And I hope as you continue on your journey, that you can come back and I continue to show you love as you progress as a writer, as a creative. And I just love your vibe, bro. You got good energy, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, Kuya. And you too. I've been a fan since we first met. Like, I love watching the show, and this has been a lot of fun. Like, it went by so fast. So like, this was a good conversation. I would love to be back at some point.
My guy. Salamat, Chris Navalta. I appreciate you, brother. Please come back. You have an open door over here. Again, everybody, his links are in the description below. Follow, subscribe, go cop the book. I'm so happy right now. The amazing Chris Navalta. I'm Kuya P. Salamat, mahal kita. Until next time, ShoPowSho, y'all. We out. Peace.